Anybody here? Stephen Andrews times two was here. He said he will need to go to Home Depot. Should be back. And it looks like Dean is here. Hello, Dean. Nobody wants to hear you.
Everyone wants to hear.
Nobody wants to hear you.
Everyone.
You're not contributing anything to this live.
Yes, he is.
Joey. How's everybody doing today? Get your phone working.
I'm working. Yes. I have Steven Andrews.
Dean has popcorn. I don't think Stephen Andrews is here.
Dean was like 200.5 because I do everything by half. I can't speak today.
There were two Stevens in here, but he went to Home Depot.
But if Carafano's here, well.
Hello, buddy. Dean says she has a lovely voice, Joey. She has a lovely voice.
I don't think he appreciates it.
Nope. He's got a look of indignation on his face. Dean. I guess you can start the cars. Dean can see a 2003 Beetle and Buddy. A pretty color. Pretty color, but it needs some detail work.
Well, we'll start on the bill.
Should be easy to get the detail work done, like cleaning up under the frunk and in the engine compartment, stuff like that. So the new owner would have to do it. Oh. This, of course, was the last year for the Volkswagen Beetle.
Chris is here?
Hello, Chris. Yep, right in time to see a pretty color on a 2003 Beetle. Not a bad price either.
You brought the supper?
No, it's charging. Let me get that, because we're going to need it. Been charging for an hour because I killed the battery out there in the washroom. Little mosquitoes are getting us all over the place. This says, hi Dean, fist bump for a slightly delayed Anzac Day. What's Anzac Day? Do I want to know?
I don't know, man.
See, if you notice, watch when the picture of the frunk and the engine, see that needs a detail. It needs to be cleaned and painted and stuff.
Yeah.
He wants your yogurt.
I know.
Dean says, I like it. Needs an empty dual port intake. Dolorto, DHLA 48. I said a Porsche 911 SC wheels, but I'll take it as it is.
Dolorto?
Doesn't need the 911 wheels. Aren't those 5 lugs?
Chris says Anzac Day is like our Memorial Day.
Oh, okay.
No te voy a dar yogur, es mío.
You never share your food. He says, fist pump right back at you, good boy. This little ute is based on a Ford Fiesta. And it just became legal to cross this year, but this one isn't. That's a newer version. It's hard to find the first year model. Most of them have been driven into the ground. Not hard to fix them up though. You know, I don't yawn at all when I'm sitting in front of my computer, but sitting here, yawning all the time.
I don't know.
Chris asks, everything go well at the dentist? To Dean? Yeah, Dean, what happened at the dentist? Do you have any teeth left? Are you lisping all the time now because you have no front teeth? He says, "Let's make the UK behave again." How are you gonna do that, Dean?
I don't know, but believe yourself is here.
Hello, Believe. Thank you for joining us. People are trickling in slowly. People must have things to do today.
Apparently, it's a holiday.
Yeah, but only for them.
Mm-hmm.
Our holiday's next week.
Yep.
Anyway, I solved the payment problem with Henry, but I don't think I sent him all the information and I know he saw it, but he didn't answer. Hopefully, he's checking it out because I talked to Adrian and he told me how he makes payments to Japan,
Mm.
which is with Wise.
Mm.
Because it's not that I need a Wise account, it's that he needs a Wise account. He wires his from his bank account to the Wise account. Then from there, he can wire it directly to my bank here. I mean, with the information I gave him, so I get the money that way. Chris says, "Barracuda, Barracuda, hey, didn't see you there."
Hey, Perkula.
Barry he says, "Barry, good day, sir. Another fist bump for you for a slightly belated Anzac Day." Dean says, "Lol, they were able to save tooth number 7, so I only had 6 teeth removed for now."
Be removed.
Are you going to have replacements put in, or are you just going to let the other ones grow together? I've had teeth removed, and I've never had a problem. None of them have been really difficult. The guy just got in there with a pair of pliers and ripped it out of there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel anything.
I know. No, Joey, help me.
When I had root canals done, though, I don't react well. The anesthesia doesn't really help me. So there was active nerves as he's digging in there, and then he took the needle directly into the middle of the tooth and tried to shoot the anesthesia right
What are
into
we
the
talking about?
right into the nerve directly, and that didn't work either. So I just had to deal with the pain.
This
Yeah,
is no replacements. Perkula says thanks to his house the weather. Policarpanos is nice. Ben?
it is very very clean. But I'm assuming that the lights on the front fender there are the turn signals because there are no turn signals in the front of this car at all. And I don't think it has semaphores. Could be. Picture's not the clearest. But there are no front facing turn signals on this car. Here's a car with a lot of potential, just as I say right there, great potential. 62, I think it's a Savoy station wagon. It could be cleaned up. It's kind of like the Savoy that I have here. It needs all the paint done, it needs all the rust fixed. It probably runs, but needs new tires, needs the bumpers cleaned up, stuff like that. But where are you going to find a 62 Plymouth station wagon?
Mm-hmm. Traces particular rainy, hovering around 8 to 10 Celsius, super annoying.
Jeez.
Dean says, I'm the same. I like the video of what a baby I am at the dentist. He says if he could play it back when I get smart mouths.
Smart mouth.
Bertula says, it's not warming up in a hurry, is it?
At least this one still has the stock, the original front bench seat, not like ours does. Bucket seats from a Nissan something that are not comfortable anyway. Anybody want a purple Bluebird? Should be painted blue for the name.
That wouldn't be very original.
The fender, the mirrors are on the fenders. I don't see any. You would get hit so hard. I don't see any mirrors on the doors. So, and they're not remote. So, get out, adjust it, sit back down. Nope. Get out, adjust it, sit back down. No, get out, adjust the stick back. Somebody did this car nice. So I don't think it ever came as purple from the factory. Bruce is here. Inspector Bruce. Hello, Bruce.
Hey, Bruce. Meow.
Dean says it looks bitchin'. Doesn't it need a 289 Maverick engine though? You wouldn't want to do that in a Datsun. That would just be rude. Lester LeSaber's here. Hello, everybody. Everyone.
Lester.
Hello, Lester. Somebody went crazy with blue paint on the chassis and suspension of this Bluebird. I guess that's where you get your blue, but kind of looks ridiculous. Leave your chassis black. And if it's not black, paint your chassis black. But the blue does not go with the purple.
No.
In my opinion.
In my humble opinion.
My opinion is not humble. Dean says, fly. Let's fly away. Inspector Bruce is flying today. Here's another one for you, Chris. And it's a rag top. Got a hole in the roof. Paint chore wagon. I don't know if I do any work with the wagon. I wouldn't want to mess up the purple paint.
Marcus says, I had a laugh the other night with my son after I remembered something I said to Chris. Ah. My anime.
And Chris says, ragtop. Nice. Original or not, I don't know, but it's there.
So te callas.
You're not going to like it.
Sí, tiene yogurt.
Yogurt, yes, but the other stuff that's in it?
It's seeds.
Lester says, Dean. Driveway says, Barracuda. Okay, I'll bite. What?
I like it.
You're going to spoil him. Now will you go away? You had your little piece. Now go away. What do you think of the green on this? It kind of looks like the green on the video on the Cuda that Tony just had on his video.
Chris says it might be a little late from a factory racked up. Not 1005 sure though.
This is a 64, but remember, made in Mexico. So I don't think they would have put it in Mexico. It looks good though. It's the right shape, functions correctly in that picture you see there. So I don't know.
Tim says Joey wants to cuddle Mexican Spec.
Yeah, that's later. It's not during a live. I'm working here.
He doesn't want to.
He left it on the floor.
He doesn't want to cuddle. He wants my food.
Chris says green seems a little much for me, but you could see it at night, Chris, without the lights on. Glows in the dark. Believe says this green feels more earthy. It is kind of the color of leaves, isn't it? Oh no, we back to this, Barry?
That's why he was having a laugh.
Oh, okay. Well, it was both of you that proposed. It wasn't just you, Barry. Dean says, kiwi fruit colored. Cuda. Well, that's one strike against it. Lester, not my favorite green. But it's on a Beetle. It has to be bright colors. Who wants a gold colored Beetle? Dean says, I do believe we weirded Chris out that day, Barracuda. I think you're right, Dean. Chris says to Barry, does New Zealand need any IT guys? Depending on the outcome of a meeting on Tuesday, I may be looking for a new gig. You're going to have to learn how to do everything backwards, though, Chris. Are you going to be able to do that? 1964 Triumph Herald convertible. When was the last time you saw one of these outside of the UK? I didn't know this one was here either till I saw it. Morelos license plate. So it's registered here. He says, yes, Chris. You could control the whole country. Chris says, upside down. I've already been practicing typing on my head. Good. That's good practice.
This is a light dark green metallic on the beetle.
Oh yeah, the jade green looks really good. Like some of them that I've shown. If I got a beetle, it would definitely be that color.
ITs, YCs, PRs.
That's the wrong subject, Barry.
Policarpano says, like the fins.
Yeah, it's kind of weird on a little car like that, but it was from the early '60s. Everybody was doing the same stuff. Dean says GTs, XUIs, E49s. And Chris says to Lester, there's a shade of green Subaru used that looks amazing on a Beetle. You don't want to mix Subaru with Volkswagen. I know people do.
This is memories of typing. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Bruce likes the Triumph. I've seen them on TV shows in the UK, but I've never seen one in Mexico. I don't know where you would get parts for it. Are you going to read it?
Bergula says, my son said, I hope these people know you're joking.
Most of him knew you were joking, Barry, but there's always that little part. Dean said, the stewed drunk dog trips over the attacking fox. Just let your fingers do the walking, do the typing. Mine are rebelling against me. I can't spell the word picture to save my life. Chris says to Barry, you were joking? All of you Kiwis are vicious heartbreakers. I guess this is the only live that we can do proposals on. Not on Tony's, not on anybody else's.
Mine.
Dean says unrequited love.
Oh.
Now here's a '66 Beetle. Roof rack. With a roof rack. And the big chrome bumpers. Whenever I do search for years over here, Beetles always come up no matter what year it is. But some people want huge numbers for their cars. And a Beetle's a Beetle. A 2003 is the same as one of these as far as usability. So why pay all the extra? You can turn a 2003 into one of these fairly easy. Although this does have a longer hood on it. Uno's here.
Hey, Uno.
It's Chupa, Stupa, Poopa, Hoopa, Baba, Hoopa something. Bad luck, black magic, hockey, jinxing, hosers. Go bite 2 chicken heads and burn some cat here. It's the playoffs. We're down 2-1. It's not our fault. We didn't do it. We don't even recognize hockey as a thing. We only have football here.
Películas españolas doesn't like that sort of thing.
No. Dean says, it's like the old Paul Zindel book. I never loved your mind. Chris, you're sure that's a Mexican car? The VW15 logo on it suggests European. People put on whatever they put on, Chris. It very well could be a German made car. Who knows?
But the car from the two-tone paint looks good on a Beetle.
Yes, it does. You got to break up all of that metal that's on there. You got to break it up with those colors.
KJ Kylie is here.
Hello, KJ Kylie. Thanks for joining us.
It says, can you imagine Tony's reaction to proposals in his live stream?
He would skip over it and not even look at it, Lester. Just like he did on Sunday when he was sending free shirts to everybody but me.
Dean says very could have one nice big hug and he'd be won over, I'm sure. Uno's going.
It's not our fault.
Dean says hi to KJ Kylie. Hmm.
I admit the interior looks a bit better on the older Beetles. Less plasticky, less black.
What did Tyler's here?
Hello, Don. And the hello me and the lady. Mrs. Mix.
Hello.
It says, so that reminds me, he didn't have a Wednesday talk. No, he didn't come on Wednesday. I refreshed and refreshed and refreshed, and he never came on. Okay, if you need to blame somebody, blame us. But we're not at fault. My magic does not extend that far, Uno. Not all the way to Canada. That's long distance, and that costs too much to send the magic that far. I never really thought to paint a Dodge A100 like this. The back of the truck is red, and then you just have around the driver's door and the roof going down to the front silver. Never thought about painting a van like that.
When I got this red van.
Yeah, it looks nice. I can't really tell what engine it has because the carburetor is in the middle on a V8 as well as a slant 6. So there's not a clear picture of what's in there, and it wasn't in the description. They should cover the floor though. I mean, they should put some kind of carpet in there instead of just putting that nice bed there on a bare floor. But the next guy can do it.
Chris says, you think he'd have the courtesy of posting a note letting people know there'll be no live?
No, he doesn't do that. Kathy may have been having problems that night or something. So they're not really thinking about any of that when she's like that. I don't know what the situation was. We can find out tomorrow.
Barcola says, I worded Tony out once by saying I like to have some of his hair. The topic was about him being famous or not. Firefly is here.
Hello, Wildfly.
They're clinging to a blood orange. I've never had a blood orange.
Why did? Never mind, Barracuda. Never mind. Chris says, one-eyed cat. Are they purrate? Purrate?
Pirate. Pirate.
Come near me, you're dead.
Dean says, did you keep safe? He says, yes. Firefly says, good afternoon all. Chris says, Firefly, hey dude. And the cat says, indeed, maybe.
I'm going to turn the light on.
Okay.
I need to see these mosquitoes that are attacking me. This is the season. Of course, it's always the season here. You read the comments. I look for mosquitoes.
Pablo says blue oranges have a richer, heavier orange flavor. I like oranges, but I don't like what are the other ones? Tangerines. I don't like tangerines. They're too acidic.
I'm back. I want to kill you.
Less tart. Oh, that's good.
That's tart. Yeah. Got you. And squish you. I'm moving around.
Chris says, turns on the light, realizes it's a tarantula, not a mosquito.
I'd zap him anyway. This is a very strong zapper.
Mr. Spec is not afraid of spiders.
Nope. There's one under my desk. She's, I don't know, an inch and a half across, 2 inches across or something.
It's not a tarantula, it's just a regular garden spider.
She hides under the desk, but at nighttime she'll come out when I'm not there. But if I put the light under there, she runs back behind the other part of the desk, so I can't see her. Firefly says, doesn't taste like a tangerine. A tangerine is sweeter.
Tangerines are not sweeter, they're tart here.
Believe likes the interior.
My goodness, I mean tart.
Yeah, this is a very, very nice 67 Galaxy. It's not my favorite year because of the dashboard, but somebody went way out of their way to make everything white in this interior. Everything.
Dean says tartans, regular tartans. Monica says, wow, that's white.
And here's another one that's not quite up to the level of the other one. I think the other one, being a Mexican car, had a few LTD parts on the inside. This one may be just a pure Galaxy.
Pablo says garden spiders are pretty yellow and black, right? No,
this one's big and brown.
This one's they have long legs, but they have really small bodies, so we call them garden spiders because they don't like eat much. They're not scary. Dean says it's most excellently white.
That car would do really well at the white party, if anybody had one anymore.
Pablo says wow, interior. Which is the whole interior of that car has apparently surrendered.
Yes, it has.
Pergola says, I have to take overalls off for that car.
I couldn't have a car like that because everything would be dirty in there. Everything. Now this is black. This is the way it came. A black dash pad, black center console, all of that. There's no reason to turn everything white. Although it does do good with the dark blue paint on the outside and the LTD, the XL wheels on it that are on it. Which we learned from Dennis Collins that they use those LTD wheels, wheel covers, for the Mustang GTs that had 15-inch wheels. Tarantulas aren't really dangerous, are they? Not like a scorpion. No, KJ, no. That's why people keep them as pets.
Unless you are allergic to them, they wouldn't be dangerous enough. Movie tarantulas are always dangerous. Yeah.
That's how they want to portray them in movies. Yeah, they want to scare people to be scared of spiders. We have spiders all over the house. Everywhere in this house there are spiders. In the shower, underneath the back of the toilet, everywhere.
They eat the bugs though.
Yeah, and they're supposed to. The problem is that they don't affect the mosquitoes. The mosquitoes can land on their webs and then push right off because the webs are not affecting them for some reason. Sorry. And that's bad.
This is just fierce looking, could you call it? Yeah. Chris says spiders or spiders?
With an I, of course.
Pablo says the tarantulas are lined with fiberglass. That's its defense. Yeah, I've heard that they can
fiberglass.
Yeah, the hair on their tummies, they are like fiberglass, so they can like scratch their tummy and throw the hairs at you, and they stick in your fingers and they hurt.
Ow.
Yeah.
Didn't think tarantulas were that smart.
Yeah.
Very good. It says, Chris, you wouldn't have a problem getting another IT job where you live.
Did you call this? How about Gila monsters?
Gila monsters. KJ, a friend of mine in California, had two of them, a male and a female, Bonnie and Clyde. They are the slowest animal I have ever seen. In order to feed them, he had to knock the mouse out. Like he knocked the mouse against the wall, knocked the mouse out, and then put it in front of the male before he would slowly start to eat the thing. And because the venom sacs are in the bottom jaw, a Gila monster has to bite 2 or 3 times to get the venom up into his teeth. So the second or third time that he munches down on the mouse, you see the mouse just go out, spread out like that when the venom goes into him. But yeah, they're not. I don't know how they survive in the wild. I really don't. They're just the slowest things. And shortly after that, I don't know how long ago it was, but in the LA Zoo, which is by Griffith Park, a guy working at the zoo got bit by a Gila monster, and the idiot let the Gila monster bite him 2 or 3 times to get the venom into him. I mean, if it bites you once, you're not going to feel anything because there's nothing in his teeth yet. The guy let the little thing bite him 2 or 3 times and sent him to the hospital. And of course, there's no antidote or anything because it's so rare. So he just had to deal with the pain until it was over. I mean, he didn't die, but until it worked through his system. But yeah, and of course the male is the prettier one. It has the brighter orange and black, and the female has really dulled colors.
It's just like big 6 foot one on Gilligan's Island that ate the nuclear waste and got bigger.
That thing had a hard time walking, being suspended by all the strings.
This is the Barracuda. Nobody hires IT pros over 40 years old unless they have some sort of highly specialized skills.
You have a lot of experience.
Butterfly says the hairs penetrate the skin, just like fiberglass.
Yeah.
Let's say versus slower than sloth.
I don't know how slow sloths are, but this thing just every other lizard he ever had tried to get away. No, these things just sit there and do nothing. So I don't know how they survive in the wild. I really don't.
Barracuda says I bet I wouldn't get bigger. I wouldn't get bigger if I ate nuclear waste.
No, but you're not on a TV show either.
Because the monsters are slow, but they have to chew on you to get the venom in. However, they have a death grip when they wrap around your leg.
How would they wrap around your leg? They're not particularly long. They don't have a really long tail. I don't know how that would happen. But yeah, that's what I just said. I watched it for myself. If he put a mouse in with them, the mouse would probably chew on them before they would get a chance to eat it because they just can't go after it. They just can't.
Regular says, I don't see what age has to do with that work.
What the age has to do with it is the older guy expects more money and a compensation plan and everything else to take care of his family.
AJ Callis is familiar with Chukawalas?
Never heard of it.
Olive is here.
Hello, Olive. Thanks for coming.
Limit yourself says hey to Olive. Right. Dean says hi Olive. Gila Monsters discussion.
Gila Monster.
Déjame decirle como yo quiero.
No.
Sí.
You can't change the animal's name.
I can do.
Gila Monster discussion time. Well, something I have personal experience with, because this guy had all the illegal animals in California. You're not allowed to have Gila monsters. You're not allowed to have piranhas. You're not allowed to have ferrets. You're not allowed to have all those things, but he had them all. I think I told this story before that he had a 14, 15-foot python. He had it in the bathroom at his warehouse, and he just comes walking in the door with a rabbit in his hand, and the snake hadn't eaten for 3 or 4 months. The snake was on him in a couple of seconds, on the rabbit, on his hand, and everything else. And it was a python. It wasn't a boa, so it wasn't wrapping around him or anything. But he walked over to the kitchen, got a butter knife, and started prying the snake's mouth off of his hand, which rips out the skin because the snake's teeth are at an angle. When it opens its mouth, it rips the meat to shreds. So yeah, he wasn't a smart guy. He couldn't call their ambulance or anything either because he wasn't allowed to have such a big snake. So that would have been a problem. Firefly says, "Well, I don't think the guy who kept them never never kept them warmed up to 100 Fahrenheit all the time. Well, maybe not, but he did. There were already are always heating rocks in the aquarium with him.
Franklin said, my father said to me once, don't get old, whatever you do.
Well, there's only one other alternative, Barry.
I think Uno's still losing.
Yeah,
Chris says, Barracuda, amazing 30 years of knowledge.
amassing.
Amassing 30 years of knowledge is great in most professions, but it's meaningless in IT. Anything you do that's more than 5 years old is outdated.
Anything you know that's more than 5 years old. Yeah.
Mm. W. Farr is here.
Hello, Dobby. Thanks for joining us.
Uno says, Pythons hate Volkswagen. Question mark.
Pythons hate Volkswagens? No. This was a fur covered rabbit in his hand. Meant to be the snake's food. He didn't expect his hand to go with it because he's not too smart. A snake can strike half the length of its body in a second or two. And this snake was 14, 15 feet long. So the bathroom was not that big.
Regular says, yeah, I suppose. KJ Kelly says, I had a reptile study merit badge in the Boy Scouts. I was proud of it.
What reptiles did you study? Did you have any at home?
Dean says, Python hiss. Pablo Campos here.
Hello, Buff.
This is it. I'm late again.
That's okay. We don't need a note from Kim.
Chris says to Barracuda, it's like perpetually running a marathon. Eventually, even the strongest person runs out of gas.
That's true.
Monica says, okay, I need to do some chores yet. Dishes for one. I hope to be back.
Okay, Don, we'll be here, or we'll be later tomorrow night.
Lester says, what's the python name, Monty?
I do not remember what the python's name was. I just do remember when it struck at me when I was a kid. That's how long he had the same snake. I barely got away.
Barracuda says, not many reptiles in New Zealand.
But you have other things.
Uno says, knock knock.
I assume he's gonna go to the next thing.
You're supposed to answer.
Oh, who's there? You're the one reading them.
I'm reading them for you.
Does anybody want a purple 69 Valiant two-door hardtop that was never sold in the U.S.?
He says, boo. Well, this is one of the most fun snakes I've had was a black racer. That thing was born weird and pissed off, non-venomous, but acted like it was, very alert, even watched TV very intently.
Those things are made to get away. He had a boa constrictor, and he had the reticulated python. The boa he would put around his neck and go to parks and stuff. You know, girls will pet the snake and pet him too. That snake was fine just being around his neck. The python always wanted to get away. That's the only thing the python wanted to do was get away. So if you want a snake, get a boa.
Dean says, watch Dave's garage. You're underestimating your true worldly worth, Chris. And all it says, hate to buff and drive. What was that? W. Parr says, have you seen any late 70s Toyota Celica?
I recently saw, yes, 79 or 80 hatchback, but it's been in Mexico so long. It had taillights from a different car. It was not a well taken care of car. They didn't sell them here, but there are a few of them here. They're kind of hard to find though.
Olive says, hey, have you found Voyant for me? But I like that shade of purple.
How about the interior? The purple with the, what is it, off-white seats? Even a different purple than the outside.
Chris says, Olive, hey, Olive, taking a break from the Motor Week marathon? Uno says, don't cry, your bad luck can change. Do some mixy voodoo and add ketchup to the salsa or relish to the burden. That's um I forgot the word. Quien says I was the campo. Que says George. Thorogood
Mm-hmm.
had a rattlesnake for a necktie.
Was it alive?
I doubt it. Pablo says boas are boring.
Not necessarily. It depends what you want them for.
Olive says, hey, drive. I had a compi crash earlier, but thought I'd drop in here. Chris says, Dean, honestly, I'm burned out from IT. Would rather do something more meaningful.
Too bad you don't live in Arizona. You could sell Mexican cars. I'll send them to you. I'll send them to you, and you go. You sell them there.
Ricardo Flores is here.
Hello, Ricardo.
And
That was a '69 Valiant, Plymouth Valiant, the purple one. This is a Datsun 510 that doesn't. This was sold, but then I've seen it published three other places, so they just may have sold it on one and just didn't have. I don't know. I think it's been sold.
so he says, I just saw one TV and kind of liked them. One
They
on TV.
they were good cars. They copied the Mustang, the first Mustang. That's why they were so popular in a smaller package. Toyota knew what they were doing.
Olive says, interiors maybe too much.
That's what seat covers are for, Olive.
Raguda says, there's a native lizard called tuatara, but nobody's ever seen those. And in some areas, plenty of skinks.
Hmm.
Ricardo says that purple upholstery looks so groovy.
Somebody liked it. They paid somebody to actually do it in one of those cars.
Dean says, Dan, the IT and you need to talk unofficially without security lapses. IT is the going thing.
Yeah, but it keeps growing. You have to constantly learn about it.
Yeah.
That purple interior, if I would have done it, I would have made the purple inserts bigger. The seat is pretty big, and the inserts are so small, kind of odd looking.
Olive says, I forgive a lot for the stick car.
Mm.
Ralph says, unfortunately, hognose snakes are protected, so they are off limits. Too bad. It will play dead and fake convulsions sometimes. Uno says, boa boots are not boring. Boots.
Boa boots. Boots.
Dean says,
He's really taking it personal.
yeah.
Our existence in this world.
Yeah. Dean says, Tuataras live for 120 years old. Imagine if one of them didn't like information technology.
How do you know that if nobody has ever seen one, Dean?
Mm-hmm. Pipeline says, those are endangered. Ole says, I do like diamond quilt. Wonder if someone there could make the purple of the seats match the door panels or something.
It is a lighter color. I mean, if you're gonna put purple in there, make it the same color as the outside.
Bafla says, rear seat lighting. Interesting. Dean says, it's got a chrome Pirelli air cleaner. Chris says, fuselage body mopers, nothing better.
Except for my '63 Plymouth.
Granddad's junk is here.
Hello, Granddad.
Unless
It's junk.
Unless you could say Mexi brother and Mrs. Mexi sisterhood. Jim says, looks like a 145 slash OVR, not zero VR,
Oh, I don't know.
13 tire.
On what? On the Datsun 510?
Uno says hockey is very personal to Canadians.
Yes, and we're in Mexico.
Brenda says, is this charger for sale, Mexi?
Yes, it is. There's quite a few others. The front end is kind of odd. The gear shift lever is kind of odd. They've done some changes to this one.
Chris says to Brenda's junk, hey Tony, like the other Kiwis here, I offer you a fist bump for a slightly belated ANZAC thing. Olive says, oh, I just go all white for the seats, man.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's what we have in our Dart, and it works fine. I don't know if you know this, but I thought that somebody had taken the front seat out of a two-door Dart and put it in here because it's a four-door, but it folds forward. No, I've seen the folding seats in other four-door Darts here in Mexico. So I guess what they did was they just made one seat, put them in both body styles so they could save money. But yeah, the front seats, even being a four-door, fold down just like as if it was a two-door.
Bruno says, did you eat those sugary cereals when you were a kid? The ones advertised during Saturday morning cartoons? What's your favorite blueberry?
Oh, mine was Count Chocula, of course. I don't even know what flavor blueberry is.
Dean Stevens says, I can show you many tuataras in an instant. We have them all over New Zealand in three separate colonies. Tell them Granda's young.
But Barry said nobody's ever seen one.
Chris says,
So who's not telling the truth here?
Chris says to Uno, what's your team and who are they playing? Regula says, he's the First World War veteran. Granda says, good morning, Chris, brother. Have missed all lives this week. It's been beautiful weather. I've been very busy.
That's nice. Do things outside. We should all be doing things outside, which we will be doing later tonight, burning stuff.
Dean says, they go all the way to Invercargill.
We have lots to burn. We have to bring in more branches. It's a fire hazard out there in front. Black Mustang. The way they take these pictures, it's hard to tell if there's defects in the paint or it's a reflection from something else. Dean says it's perfect. It's cold and rainy today. Chris says I'd be doing stuff outside if it weren't A, snowing, or B, raining. Well, tell it to stop, Chris. Barry, I've never seen one. I've never seen a kiwi either. I don't blame you on the kiwi, but the reptile would be interesting. They don't have them in zoos or anything. All it says basically on the purple one, I just want to tone down the interior bit, but in a more normal shift lever. Have fun. Granddad, Dennis is looking after you. And Granddad talks to Olive. Dean, I bet Granddad's junk would feed it to Atara. They could take that a few ways. Olive, there's a nice interior there in that big Mustang. Hey, a grand. Somebody did a nice job on that with the little accents and stuff. Is this a 71 really? I took them at their word, but I don't know what the 71 Ventura looks like and what kind of front end it has. Of course, this was imported from the US, but Barry's having pretty good weather. It's nice out here, too. I don't see any trees moving, so there's no wind. Tuatara are cute. Are they?
I don't know.
I don't either. Dean says, Momzilla, Mrs. Ecstasy, has seen both.
There's a mosquito right there.
Firefly. Oh, forgot. The scale mail I ordered came in. I ordered nickel silver. Looks like a solid nickel alloy, not magnetic, but it has scratches all over it. Not at all like stainless steel I had. So are you going to send it back or are you going to work with it? Chris says, that doesn't look like a 71 Pontiac, more like a 74. It's all possible, you know.
Brenda says, until a tourist growls at me. Firefly says, not as good looking or hard as the stainless steel scales it is continued. Olive says, I want to say maybe the Ventura is a 73, but not sure.
It did look newer than a 71. But they changed the dashboard, which I don't like.
Lisa says, bumper looks too big for a 71? Question mark?
Well, yeah, that's true. But I take the license plate and I look for the VIN, but I couldn't do that on this one. Dean says, I bet they would be nice with a side salad of tortilla sauce, but that would be illegal to roast one unless you did it on the sly. Why would you want to roast one? You look at animals and think food? Granddad, Vilefly, and Uno. Also good day. Lovely day. Good day, Lester. You read them?
Firefly says, I will work with what I've got. There are no other choices unless I want stamped steel that will rust quickly.
Well, you could sell it with a whole bunch of vinegar, like a big bottle of vinegar to get rid of the rust.
No.
Whatever's cheaper.
Olive says, I'm cool with that. Um, dashboard,
Dashboard.
dashboard looks like quality gauges.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the original factory turn signal lights, and my dashboards have to have that.
Dean says, you train the tourists very well, Candace Chunks. They know you care 100%.
Those are pretty big bumpers for a 71. I didn't even pay attention to that.
Candace Chunks says, I picked up some Valiant parts yesterday. Got 4 doors.
Do you have a four-door Valiant? Or are you going to turn a two-door into a four-door? That has a black license plate.
Mm-hmm.
A Wheeler? Mm-hmm. I didn't know we had black license plates here. Another one for
This is
you,
South
Chris.
Carolina.
Oh, whatever. Can't
Was it South Carolina? Will the trail is here?
Hello, Will.
And I say, good evening. Just got my Mustang back on the road.
Cool.
Barguda
Now you can
says,
drive it all over the place.
Barguda says, Jack Pallas resembled a Tuatara in his old age, just in the face. Ian says, I'm very shallow. I think a lot about food. When I see snails, mockingbirds, hungry caterpillars. Firefly says, I was going for strong and light, so I stamp steel stamp steel is out.
Mm-hmm.
They sell all color of aluminum, but it does not lay as flat or neat.
Mm-hmm.
Will Literal says, that's a nice Nova.
That is a nice Pontiac Ventura. Kind of like a Nova, but more Pontiac.
Ouch. Brenda Jones says, the big bus is geese are the coolest birds, funny, destructive, super curious.
Kiwis, maybe?
No, I don't think so. And it says any of those dirty old Volkswagens are at least a dime up here.
What does that mean? 10,000? That's about what people ask for them here. That's what I would have to sell one for with all the transport and travel and everything. I'm just worried that somebody's going to buy a Volkswagen Beetle from me and I have to deliver it to the port because I have to drive that sucker 400 kilometers from Mexico City.
Dean says, believe it or not, Barracuda, I agree. Chris says, I just did a search. That looks like a 74 Ventura.
Okay, that makes sense with the big bumpers. Thank you, Chris.
Firefly says, everyone turns into a lizard as they get older and start tasting the air with their tongue and stuff.
I'll try not to.
Grandma's Young says, most Valiants here are 4-door.
Yep.
Blah blah 4125 is here.
Hello, blah blah, from Austin, Texas.
Yes.
Austin, Texas.
Well, Literal says, I guess it's a good thing I'm looking for a 1985 Mexican 302 because I noticed on my car's filler cap on the valve cover is looking sludgy in there.
Somebody didn't change the oil or something.
Dean says 914 Porsche wheels. That's what would suit that.
It's already got 5 lug wheels.
Chris says, so granddads, don't feed the Kia, Tony. Didn't you, sorry, didn't you hear what the teenage Aussie tourist told you? Brandon says today, and blah blah and will. But the girl says, anyway, Mexican Pontiacs only came with Chevrolet engines, right?
That was in Canada,
And Dean agrees.
not in the U.S. No, they came with Pontiac engines, most of them, until the divisions came together and they started sharing parts. You do not tell somebody with a Pontiac that he has a Chevy engine under the hood.
Blah blah says, I met you on Dead Dot Garage Live Sunday.
Oh, how nice. Thank you for joining us. I hope you see some interesting cars, like maybe this satellite.
Butterfly says, I was right in the middle of a reptile zoo and someone was giving boost to these goddamn things. Fear unloading in Las Vegas. Blah blah says, love horseshoe shifters.
They have a great feel when you shift them.
Willie Drill says, I love that 72 Ford and that 73 Plymouth Satellite.
I wonder if it is a 73 though, because it looks like it has a 74 front end to me. But I just take the owner's word. You know, they're selling their car. They should know what year it is. But obviously, it's a U.S. car because we didn't sell these here. And it's a column shift. It's not anything special. They just price it like it's something special. I honestly do not understand why people like these more than they like the 68, 69, and 70 models. I really don't.
Dean says, rest in peace, Fear Unloading author.
Yep,
God bless us, Hunter S. Thompson.
that's his name.
Brenda Chung says, there's a couple of wee brush robins hanging around here, very friendly birds. Bush robins?
Bush.
Bush robins.
Bush Robbins.
Dean says, wait, I tell pure Pontiac that a nice LS swap would help that Pontiac a lot.
I bet a lot of people block you on their YouTube channels.
Blah blah says Hunter S. Thompson, 1937 to 2005.
Mm-hmm. Good friends with Johnny Depp. He was. Is it time for a Dodge Dart with a Mexican roof?
Chris says, I love the wrap around from bumpers of the 71 Satellite two-door. Those cars are sexy as frick. Dean says, your spirit animals, Granda Junk. Well, the Trail says, GM people argue that the Buick 350 is the best small block from GM. The Pontiac 350 is second, Chevy 350 third, and Oldsmobile fourth.
Well, people are going to rate them according to the experience that they had with them. So there's no way you can tell which one is better than the other one. Is gold a good color on the Dodge Darts with a gold interior or dark beige interior or something? 160 kilometers speedometer. Wonder if it works.
It was just International Book Day, by the way.
We don't have any international books.
That's not what I meant. And Butterfly says the Buick 350 didn't breathe very well. Blah blah says BOP rebuild parts options are hard to find. Intakes, headers, transmissions, not a lot of aftermarket options for Pontiacs. That's why most just put in Chevrolet engines.
Yes, but the extra work is worth it. Sweaty fat guy is not going to be putting a Chevy engine in any of his Pontiacs up there where he lives. Doesn't matter how hard it is to find the parts. He's going all Pontiac.
Dean says only the sensible ones block me, Mexican Spectre. Still time for you to wise up.
We'll put up with you a little longer, Dean.
Papa says mustard yellow.
It looks gold to me out in the sun. It looks gold.
Brenda says the only animals I don't like here are the deer. They eat all my stuff, wreck fence, break into tunnel house, and eat everything in it.
They're hungry. Give them something to eat so they don't have to tear your place apart.
Blah says low.
The majority of the darts like this you see here in Mexico are still riding on their original wheels, original wheel covers, original interior, everything. They're still just like they came new. Can't say that about the US. First thing people do, put wheels on it. Do this, do that. I want disc brakes in front, or I want bigger wheels, stuff like that. No, people don't mess with this stuff here.
It says the Oldsmobile 307 was the rear drive Cadillac engine right up to 1990.
5.0. I don't care what's under the hood, it ran well.
Olive says, black and off white, much better for interior.
Yep, doesn't stand out as much. But if you saw some Mexican neighborhoods and how they paint their houses, you would know why that guy put purple inserts on his seats, in his seats.
Affleck says, I wish we didn't need salt on our roads in the winter.
You can put a dome over your city and then the snow can't get to you.
How about
I've
cat?
seen that. I've seen that on a animated TV show.
How about cat litter? I've seen them use cat litter for that.
I don't think that's like clay. I'm not sure that would be any better.
Mm. Olive says, putting a vinyl top on that style roof is kind of questionable.
Yes, yes it is. And mine had it. There
Blah,
was chrome trim all around the back roof part and went up and oh,
Blah says, I used to go to New Laredo every month. Lots of Nuevo Laredo every month. Lots of nice taking care of cars. Car owners in Mexico have pride in their rights.
well, that's because they're not disposable. You can't just go get another one for $300. You have to take care of what you have. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully you're not going there anymore.
Inspiration says, I like getting blocked. I stalk Olive Drab all the time in the Motor Week marathons, and she's perfectly behaved. When I grow up, I like to be like her. After Campo says, houses in Mexico are colorful. Yeah, we do like
Yep,
our color.
yep. All kinds of pastel colors on houses.
Also, there is a joke about houses in Mexico being all mint green, but it is literally the cheapest paint color that we have here. So that's what.
There is a reason.
So yeah. But the conference says not a fan of painted bumpers.
If the bumpers are rusted, that's your only option. That's what people do. I had to do that on mine. My Dart, like the two door. So I also had one.
Chris says the butterfly. Well, as soon as a global warming gets bad enough, we don't have snow anymore, so no salt needed.
We won't have snow anymore, so no salt needed. I think it's just going to get colder where you live, not warmer.
Brenda says butterfly. That's the conspiracy. It hastens rust and sells more cars.
Yep.
OBS shipyard is here.
Hello, OBS Shipyard.
They say I like window louvers.
I like the window louvers. This car has window louvers. Oops, too late. Picture changed.
Blah blah says no. That was 20 to 30 years ago.
Yeah,
Butterfly
you do not want to go now with Los Zetas are in control of that area. Not good.
Rafa says the dome would turn us into the city from Logan's Run. AI would run everything. Crystal life clocks put in our hands. No one lives beyond 30.
Well, it doesn't have to. One doesn't lead to the other. It didn't on The Simpsons.
Blah blah says I don't go to border towns Mexico anymore. Now I go to beaches.
Beaches.
Sorry.
You fly in. You do not want to be driving through territory controlled by Los Zetas.
Candace Young says Firefly, you must be getting old if you watch Logan's Run.
They've had different versions of it. The original Farrah Fawcett was in that one, and then they did someone that did it later, and of course, it's never as good as the original. So,
Believe says song memory. One thing lead to another by the fix.
sing it for us, believe, so I know which one it is. Chris says 70s sci-fi TV movies are awesome. Yep, because they're not CGI,
Oh, come on.
and that's good. Blah blah says I saw Logan's Run in 1980 at a drive-in movie theater. I'm old. No, you're not. You're seasoned. That's the best place to see it. Farrah Fawcett was really, really big in a drive-in movie on a drive-in movie screen. Didn't even have her Mustang with her.
Believe says the Chris Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm.
Barker says I wouldn't have minded being on the run with Heather Menzies. Barbara says, hey, I have the movie on my hard drive along with Superman and 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
The original Superman. I was in the movie theater when that came out, and we were sitting really close to the front. And when the words came up and all the names and everything, I was looking straight up, and they were filling the whole screen. They were huge, and I was small. Well, not that small, but yeah, they were huge. You don't want to sit up front in a to watch the original Superman movie.
Jeff Hutchins is here.
Hello, Jeff. Thanks for joining us. This thing better not zap me on my leg.
Mm.
Got to figure out where these mosquitoes are coming from. Granddad says, I remember the body snatchers, very unemotional. Right, because they didn't know anything about emotions. What car is this? I missed the first page. Oh, the Datsun 710. I don't know if velour interior is right for a 710. I think black vinyl is. Firefly says, my station wagon gets a lot of envious stares at the drive-in. So we sit in the back seats and wiggle our toes at people passing by. So you park it backwards and you sit in the seat facing back.
That's nice.
Where's the speaker these days, or is there one? Is it magic now? You just hear it. Black magic.
Bluetooth.
That's what I mean.
Bluetooth is my black magic.
Yep. Hey, Firefly says, yep, just like me. He says, do what you say what you mean, one thing leads to another. It's another song.
Thomas says, turn into the radio broadcast theater. There, sorry.
Tune in with what?
With the
radio. The radio in the car? Mm-hmm. What if you don't have a radio in the car?
Well, that's your problem. Jeff Hutchins says, we had a local drive-in until just before my kids started coming.
Nobody's opened one up since then? Like retro?
Chris says, I think the drive-in here in town uses the radio for sound.
What if you don't have a radio? I have lots of cars that don't have radios.
Pablo says, just so you have a stereo.
Well, don't have stereos either.
Pablo says, I just picked up a 2003 Dakota single cab. It's 360 Magnum / NV 3500 swap. Converted from fuel injection to carb. It runs really well. Got it for $4K.
That's a good deal. 360 Magnum, which is the engine we have in the Durango, but changed over to a carburetor. That's interesting.
Stray Bullet is here.
Hello, Stray Bullet.
Hi, Stray Bullet. Regular says, I like the Planet of the Apes TV series. Around the same time, I also like The Outcast. Anyone remember that show? Outcast.
Not off the top of my head, no.
After this audio is broadcast on the FM band.
So that leaves all the old cars out that only had AM radios. That's rude.
Jeff Hutchins says, would have love for my kids to have experienced the driving. Great memories.
As long as they're not like 16.
Dean says, by the fix. Chris says, Dean P. Waybill. Juba says, you bring a transistor pocket radio to the theater.
That sounds like a lot of preparation.
Well, you don't have it? Jeff Hutchins says, they put the new Walmart where the drive-in was.
That tracks. That makes sense.
Papa says, hey, they stole my first card. There it is. Pablo says, like the land, yeah. Transaction says, Stray and Jeff, good day, guys.
This is a Mexican car, believe it or not. And there's a big V8 emblem on the front, right in front of the wheels. They wanted to make sure everybody knew It's a V8 because they Chevy was only putting sixes in cars at this time. So somebody ordered a V8 with all that stuff inside. Very rare.
Butterfly says same color too. Chris says to Butterfly, I'm sure Max would be happy to arrange the purchase for you. So what says, hi Granddad. Mercury says the Outcast was a Western series
Starring.
starring Don Murray.
That's why I didn't know what it was because I didn't watch any of the westerns. There was no cars in the westerns.
Granddad says that's why you got married, Maxie. Keep you entertained on trips.
Exactly. I had a plan.
Dean says to Chris, she's a beauty. LBS says, always love these big cars. Laura says, we're gonna need a bigger boat.
Not getting much bigger than that one.
Chris says to Dean, 1 in a million girl. She says hi to Granddad. Okay.
I'm sure this is not the original interior they put in it because Chevy would never do that kind of design on the seat. So somebody had to make it their own. But yeah, 74, I think it is. Very hard to find in Mexico one of these with a V8 engine. And it's got newer square Impala, square body Caprice wheel covers on it. I remember those because when the cars came on the lot at the Chevy dealer, our PDI guy had to put them on.
Papa says, holy flashback under the hood. The trunk needs to lose the speakers. I think Uno's still losing.
Uno is still booing us.
Dean says,
Quiet phone.
Yep. Okay.
No, leave it. It'll stop sooner or later.
You don't know who it is?
I don't care who it is.
Fine.
Everybody I know is here. I don't think Buff's calling me.
Chris says that car has mafia body dumping mobile written all over it.
Well, you are in New York, so your mind would go to that. For me, it's cruising on the highway, smooth as silk. That's what I think of. Not even worrying about potholes, just smooth.
Jay Weiss is here.
Hello, Jay Weiss. How do you guys like cougar taillights on a Maverick? Is it a little too much?
Barbara says trunk is merely rated in dead body capacity. Pretty standard, really.
The body doesn't have to be dead, just a body.
Chris says, I'm not in that part of New York.
Hey, you take responsibility if you're in the state.
Margarita says, we had a Planet of the Apes ice cream in New Zealand because of the TV series.
I have a cat under my chair.
Oh.
Planet of the Apes ice cream in New Zealand because of the TV series. What was the flavor? Hair?
Yo. Dean says, you had TV2 in Dunedin, Barracuda. Don't remind me how Alexandra missed out on all the good Western stuff. Laura says, I like it.
You like the cougar taillights on there?
El Tonkaino says, awesome. Say hi to El Tonkaino.
Hey, Alto Kaino. Don't these taillights look like if you blew up you made a fly really big and it looks like his eyes? Go ahead.
Bob says, I like those lights on the Maverick.
I guess I'm in the minority because it just seems to be too much for me back there.
Chris is very good at planning out the grapes. Bob says, cougar taillights look good on the Maverick.
Even with the bezel on there?
JY says, hey, Mopar guys say Mopar or no car. Chevy, heartbeat of America. Why no Ford guys say?
What do Ford guys say?
Oh, what do Ford guys say?
I'm sure you'll get some opinions in here. I'm going to keep mine to myself.
Jeff Hutchins says, Chris, that's what most of Oregonians say. We're not from that part of Oregon.
You have to, though, Jeff. You have to.
Lester says, like the taillights.
And everybody but me.
Lala says, does that red Maverick have 3-gen Camaro rockers?
I wouldn't know. Probably not.
Tim says, Olive, my Aunt Olive was my favorite aunt. She let me watch Channel 2 when I was in Dunedin, like feeding information to the country mouse.
I'm sure there's a reference in there we're supposed to know.
Brenda says, J brother, Mopar or no car? Yeah, baby.
The Ford guy says that, Granddad. He's asking what Ford guys say about theirs, about their truck cars and trucks.
Chris says, now it's my first car time, a Mercury Monarch.
We had one in our family too. It didn't last very long though. The rear shocks or something gave out and the rear end just dropped to the ground. And we were in Southern California, so it wasn't rust, and the car wasn't that old.
Joe Hutchins says, those Cougar taillights are way better on the Maverick. I had a 75 Maverick and it looked way worse.
Well, they're Pinto tail. Well, they're Maverick taillights. There's Maverick taillights on the Pinto because the Maverick came out first in 69 and a half. I always call them Pinto taillights because I had Pintos, but they're actually Maverick taillights. They were on that car first.
Margaret says, you were going to say what part of New York, Chris? Lester says, non-stock brothers mix.
Bothers.
Oh, non-stock brothers.
Yeah, but it's just there's just too much going on back there. It's just covering the whole back of the car.
JY says, those bumpers look so bad. Those laws for low impact crashes made the bumpers look over the top. You could sit on them.
Yes, that's what you need to have those bumpers for, to sit on them while you're waiting for the tow truck. That's what they're good for.
Dean says, Ford guys are just thankful the EEC4 two-step auxiliary computer on the 5-speed 1985 Mustang GT 5.0 runs
At
at
all.
all. Blah blah says Ford equals firing order rate ridiculously dumb.
Well, they had many firing orders even on the same engine, so you're right.
JY says Ford you can afford. Chris says very good. The problem with being from New York is that when you say you're from New York, everybody immediately thinks New York City.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Jeff Hutchins says the Ford guys say, hey, I need a tow.
Can you imagine what people think when I say I'm from Mexico or live in Mexico?
Margaret says Buffalo. Dean says Ford in 1952, we can renumber the cylinders. Bella says Ford equals found on road dead. Bafla says I don't mean the EEC4 system. Always needs a breakout box to diagnose almost quickly. Lola says Ford fix on repair daily. Chris says Barracuda Rochester about 85 miles east of Buffalo. Chris says Barracuda, New York City is a 360-mile drive from where I live. Dean says falling off rubber nuts. Brenda says they are very quiet, nothing cooler than a mighty moper. Regular says that's right. I remember you saying that another time. JY says, hey, factory aircon wasn't that common in the 60s and 70s cars, right? People put that in after, right?
There were a lot of cars in the 60s that had air conditioning. Our family car, 68 Ford, had factory air. Black vinyl interior, we needed it.
Mafla says, spell backwards, driver returns on foot. Barracuda says, how often do you go to the city? Chris says, Barracuda is the Rochester where the carburetors
It's
were made.
Rochester.
Oh, vale. Joe Hutchins says, Lala, yeah, Ford's firing order system is messed up. Walter Campos says, Ford, first on race day.
I've always said for off-road driving.
Olive says, well, if things had aircon, they usually came with it. Jay, when I was a kid, few bothered through though in New England. Dean says, every day I work regular. Brenda says, good day, buff brother. Chris says, Barracuda, I've only been to New York City once. Most people who live in the state of New York don't care for New York City.
Most people outside of New York don't care for New York City.
Josh Holman is here.
Hello, Josh. Thanks for joining us.
And blah blah says, not like if the Ford is broken down on the way to the race. Not likely. And Lester says, Ford family of fine cars. Chris says, Ford. F Tower rebuild Dutch. Dean says, "Hi Josh, how are you?" Apple says, "However, I was always fond of the 289." Joshua says, "I've never been there myself." It was says, "Mexican climate is good for cars. A dry like California."
In most of the places, yes. Right near the beaches, it doesn't like old cars. So I try to stay away from buying cars in areas like that.
Margarita says, "Wow, only once. I'm sure I wouldn't like it there either."
They're not car people there, so there's no reason to go there.
Johannes says, "My brother-in-law says Ford is found out back rescuing Dodges, but there's been driving a Dodge, but he's been driving a Dodge for about 10 years or more, so it doesn't hold up." Pablo says, "I like Cancun, Progreso, and Cozumel. Been there several times."
We don't go to tourist areas because the people that work there, the Mexicans that work there, are a different breed of people. They're always chasing the dollar. They're always chasing that. No, they're completely different from the people that we know around here in this little town. When we go to Mazatlan, that's a tourist area. Those are different people than other places in the state.
Chris says, to Barracuda, it's an okay place to visit to see many of the admittedly cool sights, but that's it. It's hyper crowded, busy, and expensive.
And dangerous.
JY says, "What do you think about Cuba? So many old 50s cars with new engines. Worth a visit? Just for just for that?"
I wouldn't go for that. I
Dean,
wouldn't want to see what engines were under the hood.
Dean says, "Buff is back. Tell your friends."
Here's a Fairmont. We like Fairmonts, don't we?
Brenda Jones says, "I had to rescue my mate twice. His Falcon broke down. Man, it was funny. He sulked."
What was the issue that made it break down? Did he run it out of gas? We've been in a few Ubers lately. The cars were just running so bad, and one was a taxi. We're driving back from the store yesterday, and the oil light is flashing on the dash, not just on, but flashing, saying, "I want attention, I want attention." So I asked him, "You trying to zap me?"
No, I'm trying to stop mosquitoes in your
So
line.
I asked him, "What's going on with the red light?" He says, "Oh, it's a sensor." But the car's also running on like half of its cylinders. A Nissan Versa. Was it Nissan Versa?
Yes.
Nissan Versa. Something like, no, it was a Volkswagen Vento. It was a Volkswagen Vento. The guy's driving around with a flashing oil light on his dash. Jeez. Vilefly. Does Fairmont have a V8? Of course it does. I don't publish the V6 models, which are only 1983. It has a V8, a Mexican 302 under the hood. This one's an automatic, but I have a few manuals in here.
I like this one.
Over here?
Yeah.
Nothing there.
Okay.
Barracuda says, "My brother went by ship from England to New York City. He said the New York people were distant and unfriendly." That tracks. Wildfly says, "I've always wondered how fast a Fairmont would go with a V8. They do pretty well here. You can ask Lester. He has his. I'm not sure if he's driven it, though." Wildfly, eek, flashing oil light. Yep. And he didn't seem too concerned. He was renting the car, as a taxi. He says the owners don't want to fix anything. Chris says to Barracuda, "I've heard that since 9/11, the attitude of people in New York has changed for the better." Uno is still booing us.
Oh no, calm down.
It's not our fault. Chris says to Barry, "I'll also say that some of the nicest people I've ever met were originally from New York City. One was former maintenance chief for Grand Central Station." Yeah, but he moved out, didn't he? Dean, we Fred guys always sulk when it breaks down. Have you noticed that too, Granddad's junk? Go ahead.
JY says, "Why do we have so many brands in America? Why not just have Chevy, Ford, and Chrysler? No need for Plymouth, Dodge, Pontiac, Buick, etc. Just silly. Have three brands and different models.
No, people want to have a choice. But notice this car right here. It says Chevelle. This is a Chevy Chevelle. Not a Malibu. It's a Chevelle. Lala says, I work from home in Austin. My job is out of New York City. People there can be abrasive, but if you understand that facet,
A
every
fact.
oh, that fact, everyone there is friendly, just not so much to tourists. Mike and
Hey, Megan.
hey, Mike,
They say that's how New York is.
don't take it personally.
Joe Hutchins says, I am not too brand loyal anymore, but there's not many Ford cars I have any interest in. Not my style. I don't speak Ford V8 much at all. Polycarpano says, like the Fairmont with vents behind rear side windows.
Yeah, that's the one that I got for Lester LeSabre. He has that on his. It was called Elite here, the top of the line car, and I have not seen one like his before or after I got his, with power seats and power windows and power everything. I have not seen one like that again.
Chris says he retired and moved up here to be close to his family. JY says not a lot of the old brands now a lot of the old brands have gone. So sad.
Yep.
Of the campus says I have several Fairmont with V8s. One was a warmed over 302 with a Futura coupe.
But that was not a Mexican engine buff, and that was really pretty well smogged out. The Mexican car is very different.
Firefly says that thing a Chevelle blasphemy.
Why? The A bodies are good cars.
Bergara says I was watching some videos yesterday of the Twin Towers. I don't really like to. What an awful event.
Yep. I won't watch it. I'll turn it off if it comes on.
Firefly says I do wish the Chevelle would come back, but they better look good like one should.
No, leave the old names in the past. I do not want to do a search for a Chevelle and a brand new car comes up, like the Maverick and the being a truck now. I don't like that.
Dean says Ford tried to avoid a federally mandated malfunction indicator light because it would always be on. In the 1985, one of the Carb GT is hooked up to the oil light. Papa says no V8, disgusting low.
The Chevelle Biofly is the bottom of the line model in the Malibu. The Malibu Classic is the middle, and the Malibu Landau is the top of the line with a V8, maybe a floor shift, stuff like that. So they were options.
I lost it. What's next?
Chris.
Chris says Barracuda. I saw it happen as I was sitting in my office at my current job. I saw it happen. Lester says all the GM brands were originally meant to give you the next rung on the ladder to move up on.
Yes, and they did not share information with each other. They were independent of each other until later on when GM needed to, were spending too much money. They just put the same engine in all the cars. Just it was badge engineered.
Chris says Dubai watching on the computer. Lala says 1967 to 1972 were the best generations of any car. No ECUs, DCUs, fuel injection, computer control ignition that run the whole car on less than 10 wires.
Yeah, exactly. My
Yeah.
63 is in there too.
JY says, can you work and fix modern cars like you could old cars? Modern engines have too much computer stuff, too many electrical stuff. All 350 Chevys was simple, just need a screwdriver.
No, they don't want you fixing the new cars. You're not going to be able to.
Hippie Long is here.
Hello, hippie long.
I say, I would like to see $15,000 new cars come back.
We have them here.
Joe Hutchins says, my father-in-law is from Buffalo, New York. He is very abrasive, but he will be the first one there to help you if you need it. He'll piss you off the entire time, but he'll show up.
Just get used to it.
Pablo says opposite names for the options. The Malibu was considered a base model here.
They did the same thing on the Chevy truck. The Cheyenne is the top of the line here, and the Silverado is the work truck.
JY says gas was a problem in the 70s, so why did they make more V8 engines?
Because people wanted them.
Chris says to Jeff Hutchins, there's a bit of a rivalry between
Rochester.
Rochester and Buffalo. They're bigger, but we're better low.
Jay's not in here to dispute that, Chris.
That's funny, Jeff.
This is an interesting car too because it looks like just a Diplomat. It's called a Dart here, but it has a 360 V8 under the hood for some reason. Somebody ordered it this way. There's not many around like this. Where's Mean Street Mopar when you need him? He'd love this car. But it does look like the car had factory air conditioning. It's just not on there anymore under the hood. That could be fixed though. Nice interior. Front and rear.
Blah blah says JY's they detoned those V8s in the 70s with all the emission smog rules. Horsepower went down and they were gutless gas guzzlers.
That never happened here, blah blah. There was no smog equipment, there was nothing. Like Dean says, the engine in the 84 Mustang is basically a 68 engine. Same thing. There's no smog pumps, there's no catalytic converters, there's nothing on them.
Steve says my grandpa had an 83 Fifth Avenue. Was a nice car, running on propane.
They're very nice cars. My friend's father had this exact car in a Fifth Avenue. It was the first one delivered to his dealership in 1982 or late 1981. He got the first one off the truck and he kept it for decades. He sold it in the late 90s. I guess it wasn't decades. Seemed older.
Brenda says to Chris, the Labrador will be getting excited whether warming you will be tinkering with it soon.
What? Chris, the LeBaron will be getting excited weather warming. We'll be tinkering with it soon. Okay.
It belongs to that Dart / Diplomat is sick.
It's pretty nice condition, except for a little bit of paint problems like they're showing here. You got to expect something on a 40-year-old car.
Chris says the granddad's at some point, but I have other projects to work on first.
He's putting it off for some reason.
Bargula says, I was up late watching the BBC channel on TV. They were showing the first tower on fire. They thought it was probably a light plane crash at that point. Then I saw a jet crash into the other one.
Yeah.
Bargula says, I was confused. Olive says, I never even fixed an AC until I moved south here. If it went bad, you'd just jack it. Save money.
Doesn't save that much in gas or anything to leave it on there. This car must not be as nice as it looks because they're taking pictures at such distance. Then they did change the steering wheel and seats and everything, and that's a lot of red. But it is a manual. Definitely a manual. Red on red.
Rafa says the Fairmont is going back to the future. Carla says in Texas, AC is a requirement.
I don't know about that. We're as hot as Texas, and so if we don't have a car with working air conditioning, we just go. No big deal. You sweat, big deal.
Chris says, to be honest, I've lost most of my enthusiasm for the LeBaron due to the registration issues and the fact that I no longer need an extra daily driver for the family.
But you have to get it going. That's what you got it for. You can't let the car sit any longer.
Olive says expensive repairs, though, usually.
Yes, because of the U.S. government. They should have kept their nose out of it.
Rafa says, holy surprise, red.
Yep.
It belongs to the Fairmont. Is what motor W?
The Fairmont is what engine? It's a Mexican 302 with a 3-speed manual transmission, unless it's been changed over to a 4. Only the 1983 models that had a 3.8 liter V6 had a 4-speed manual in it.
Blah blah says no. I require it, lol.
We thought that too, but when the Durango wasn't working, we were in the 63 Plymouth Savoy. You roll down the windows and you go. No big deal.
Leslie says, are you as humid as Houston?
We are.
Yep.
We're pretty close to the ocean here, so yes, it's the humidity is crazy here.
60 to 80%. Yeah.
This is a station wagon with a manual in it.
Jeff Hutchins says, Chris, in my experience, bigger does not mean better as far as cities go. Quite the opposite. Brenda says, Chris, brother, that must mean you need an older real mopper, say a 50s or 30s Plymouth. Olive says, nah, AC compressors still often cost more than you paid for the car even before they charge the refrigerant.
Yeah, but you can get one from a junkyard from a pick apart. That's not that difficult. Just as long as the clutch spins freely, you should be fine.
Paula says, yeah, we get Gulf of Mexico moisture, so 100% plus with 80% humidity.
100 degrees plus.
100 degrees plus.
Yeah, we're near
yeah.
the Strait of California. Yeah, the Strait of California, so we get the same thing.
Pilon says that's cool. A 4-speed bolt right on.
And blah blah. Why are you spelling your town Houston? Because it's spelled Hosuton. Didn't you know that?
Liz says to Olive, have you ever looked into those electric universals AC systems? Paula says, I only buy and own manual transmission cars, 3 pedals, equals part time.
Yep. They're fun to drive.
Mark Sabasia.
Hello, Mark.
Good evening. Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. We don't need a note this time.
This is hi to Mark. Bargla says, do you go sea fishing, Spec?
No. Water does not like me. And it's mutual. And I would have no reason to be pulling fish out of the water since I don't eat them. I'm just going to leave them be and they let me be.
Joe Hutchins is very good at. That's what I thought when my wife told me a plane hit the towers. I figured it was a Cessna. When I saw the second one hit, Olive says, "Nah, believe. I like the windows down anyway." Dean says, "Except blah blah. If you had the Volkswagen Volvo 164E or Mercedes-Benz 250E or a Citroen DS21, there were lots of EFI cars 67 to 72. US cars skipped it, but Shelby was experimenting with it for 68. Chris says, water doesn't like you. Are you the wicked witch of the West?
No, but boats and water and I don't get along.
Mark says, how did Lowell started doing brakes on my van?
You have a van? I thought you had a pickup truck. That's your plow. Lester prefers a manual, but his left knee does not. Gray Bullet. You have any propane cars in Mexico? Need a propane car now. Yes, they are all over Mexico. Older, newer, everything. So many people have them. It's a very common thing here because a liter of propane is a fraction of the cost of a liter of gasoline. So people convert everything here. Blah blah. I don't like European cars at all, like Mopar, GM, and Honda. Gotcha. Dean, but you could write on a maple leaf for me if you wish, Mark. Buddy, dirty water means dirty fish. Exactly, buddy. That's why I won't eat any of it. Mark Sauvé, 2010 Grand Caravan. So you're like Mark. So you're like Tony, playing around with that Biofly. Speaking of AC, I hate the new YF1234 refrigerant. It's flammable. It's chemically like propane with fluorine in it, but ridiculously expensive. I should hotshot some propane into a system to try it. Why do they make things worse all the time? Mark, and a 2002 Silverado 2500. Yep, hippie long. I'm a slut. I'll drive anything. I bought a new Volkswagen in 2011, a Volkswagen Crossfox, bright yellow. It was a good car, but new cars are not keepers. Jeff, my friends and I bought a Fairmont station wagon just to take on jackrabbiting hunting trips. It was about 96. It was an awesome shake. We paid $600. Well, I can't sell anything for $600, so Dean, hippie long. That's why we love you. Stray Bullet, can you get me one? I can get you whatever you want. There's plenty of them around. I'm not there's. I know there's a Malibu way down in Veracruz that works off propane, and I could take it right to the port and ship it to you. Oh, you're in California. Never mind. I'd have to drive it across the country. Chris to Biofly. It's because DuPont has a patent on it still. Mark, I need the van. The truck would bankrupt me with the gas it drinks. I know the feeling. I haven't put gas in my Durango since we came back from delivering the Ormiga to the border. I was still running on the gas from that trip, and we're just about out now. That was how long ago was that? Very good. Yeah, I suppose a lot of Americans saw that as it happened. I should have been in bed, but I'm a night owl. I couldn't go to bed after seeing that. Yep. Mark is laughing. Biofly. Yep. Driveway. A monopoly. That was not an accident. Hippie long. Same with motorcycles. I will ride all I can. Live the moment. That's the way to live, hippie long. Chris says to Wildfly, I think Mercedes said FU to R1234YF and switched to something else. Just to complicate things. Believe. We had an 83 Ram van. It was nice setup from that K car wagon. Yeah, I just found one. I put it on my list. I'm gonna be publishing it soon. Pretty nice. Red and silver, nice paint, nice interior, nice everything. Right around there in 83 Ram van. Unfortunately, I have no YF1234 system to try propane out on it. Stray Bullet, a truck would be nice. The problem with a truck Stray Bullet is if you put the propane tank in the bed, it's always in the sun. So I'm not sure that's a good idea. Some people put it on the roof to, kind of weird. Olive, ha, conversion van with turbine wheels. Yeah, that's it. Actually has that. Stray Bullet. No, I already have too many trucks. Well, convert one. You can buy the propane system from Buff and Kim. They have it there. The one that Tony had. Driveway to Biofly. You can switch to 1234YF car to one. You can switch a 1234YF car to 134A if you completely evacuate the system. It's illegal per the EPA, but it's not hard to do. Blah blah says Shaggin' Wagon ban. Yeah, oh here it is, right here. I was talking about that. I'm going to publish it at some point. Biofly. Propane should work great. Used to be an illegal version called Hotshot to replace R12 systems. I think it was butane. Dean Stevenson. Turbines rock. Don't you know? Olive. Stray Bullet. One of those little Chevy El Caminos on propane would be perfect. The propane tank would take up most of the bed, though. I wonder if that we would be able to cross one. And you couldn't register it in California, unfortunately. You have somebody that lives in Arizona, you could register it there. Yeah, driveway, but R134A is going up too. That doesn't affect us here. Olive. Yeah, Dean. I think for some reason they started out started out of whack or something. You stop seeing them. Stray Bullet. My home propane tank sits in the hot sun all day. Oh, okay. But nobody's gonna hit you from the side in your house though. That is a possibility when you're driving around with a propane tank in the bed of a truck. And that ain't good. I think this van looks nice. Needs center caps on the wheels, but inside and out, this is a very nice van.
From the strength of question, does propane in the US have butane in it? We get 20% butane in the LPG.
Even the roof looks nice. Look at that. Oh.
So what it says, I don't think that Tony's setup is big enough for any of my engines. I need a dual setup.
What do you mean a dual setup? I don't think I've seen any with a dual setup.
Paula says missing some lug studs too.
Yeah, that we can fix that.
Paula says van.
Yeah.
Dean says it's best not to the or feed me with the choices information. Nancy says I don't want a flammable refrigerant in my AC system.
Just in case, right? Just in case.
Joshua Max says neither will I.
Well, if that is that what they're going to for all cars, the flammable one, that doesn't seem very safe.
Chevrolet says I need two of his, like dual carburetors.
Where would you put the two into? Is it a fuel injected car, truck, whatever?
Princess Uganda's not sure. Most of us who use it for grills just exchange the tanks at the store for grilling. I just exchange the tanks at the store. The days of getting tanks refilled at the propane dealer are pretty much over.
Not for us here. We have propane stations all over the place because there's so many cars on it. So you pull in, they hook it up, you fill up your tank, you pay them, and you leave. You can do it with a barbecue tank as well.
Yeah. Rafa says one thing I am wondering about though the old hitman trick of charging the AC system with propane and pushing the cigarette lighter on comes to mind. With 1234 white F, it might work again.
Hmm.
Marxus Chris, probably same thing back with convertible R12 or R13 R134. It was complicated at the beginning, but once people figured out you couldn't match pound for pound, it was no problem. Pablo says my cars and trucks are R134 134, so I could refill for $11 myself.
Is it that cheap?
Brenda says, wow, we have heaps of refill stations.
Yeah, we do all over the place too.
Strawberry says, yes, everything that I have is fuel injected.
One thing I do not see is propane refill stations out on the highway. Because I was asking the guy with the Malibu in Veracruz, I was going to drive it up here. Where am I going to put propane in? He says they're all over the place. Yeah, but I have purposely looked as we drive down the highway. There's no propane filling stations out there. Mrs. Spec can back me up on this.
Yep.
Thank you.
Chris says, Granda's Junks, yeah, it sucks. It used to have a refill place around the corner of my house. Jim Hutchins says to Olive, the turbine wheels are my 85 Ram Charger 75D 100s SWB and a set of 8 lugs too, but I don't have them on anything currently.
So that means you have to buy another truck.
Mark says the style air filter on that Mustang is junk. I have past experience. Dean says because Granda's junks, how would you put a shrimp on a Barbie without propane?
You notice what's in the center console of this Thunderbird?
Pablo says because what is life without a little salt? Pablo says yes, used to charge my Honda earlier. Granda's junk says older, large engine, love LPG, good fuel, very clean, and 100% octane.
100 octane.
100 octane. Policarpo says had 72 Caddy with R12 or air conditioner got freezing cold.
Oh yeah, the older units. The air conditioner in my 63 Plymouth with the dual piston compressor, it'll freeze you out of the car. Somebody stole my the condenser though out of the car, so I have to evacuate the system, put a condenser in, and I can charge it up again.
Josh Homan says simple. Use charcoal. Gives the shrimp a nice smoke flavor as well. Blah blah says Thunderbird had an EQ under the stereo.
Yeah, it also had a 4-speed manual transmission that was never sold in the U.S. in a V6 car.
Mark says I was working at a Ford dealer when they were discontinuing R12. My parts manager ordered all the R12 he could. He got 5 skids, and then the price shot up way
Yeah,
shot way up.
he
Triple
was
says
smart.
Triple says it looks like it has a Ford truck steering wheel. Dean says to Harrison slash Fridge air compressors were sold to Ford for the
Granada
Granada
Monarch.
Monarch 250 302s, great AC unit. Papa says, can one still get the RB2 compressor? Dean says, for body carpano.
Mm-hmm.
Chris says, I was working on the 85 LeBaron, started loosening one of the AC lines. The system started hissing. 40 years old, sat for years, and the thing still have a charge in it.
So did my 63 Fury when I bought her. She was sitting from 77 to 82 when I bought her. And after I got the car running 7 months later, cold air conditioning. So all those years just sitting there, never lost anything.
Firefly says, assuming he got the compressor name right. Polycarbonace says, only turbo coupe manual in us. In
Right,
US.
right. And it was the base model here with the 3.8 V6, had a 4-speed manual in it. None of the Cougars, just a Thunderbird.
Bergoda says, I wouldn't like having a potential bomb in my car. Lala says, you subscribed, hyped, and shared your channel, Mexican Spec.
Thank you very much, blah, blah. We appreciate it.
Joshua says, nice looking car on the inside. Marcelo says, that looks like a fine Carinthian leather.
Yeah, I wonder what he's talking about because I'm looking at a Suburban with perfect interior.
Joshua says, I like identifying steering wheels on Mexican cars.
Yeah, but it's like Ford put the same steering wheel in everything they built. If it was in the factory, they put it on the car here in Mexico. They're not going to put a different steering wheel in a different vehicle. That costs money.
Dean Main Frigidaire.
This truck is sold because it was just so nice. Low miles, manual, 4-speed manual, perfect interior, 47,900 kilometers on it. The paint is a little faded, but it could come back, you know. But yeah, this one's already sold to somebody.
Lala says, clean, square body Suburban.
It is, and very low miles too.
Papa
47,000 kilometers is what, 30,000, 25,000 miles.
says, an RV2 compressor will run you 500 on eBay. Tribulate says, that looks like a Chevy truck steering wheel.
How amazing, because it's in a Chevy truck.
Rude. Mark says, the Chrysler before the Suburban, you guys are behind in the chats.
You're talking about the Chrysler Phantom? Yeah, that was some leather interior. That's what Chrysler did. The cars were pretty boring, but they put the really nice, comfortable interior in them.
Chris says to Firefly, here the electronic compressor used in hybrids EVs are like 5,000 per place. Dean Stevenson says smart. Joe Hutchins says my friend in college had a turbo coupe automatic, if I remember right. Another friend in high school had a Fox body turbo 4-cylinder, Capri manual.
Yeah, those were not good engines.
OBS is shipyard. I'm sorry, OBS says is that aftermarket?
If you're talking about the Volkswagen, somebody made that. Somebody put that part on the back and, to give you extra storage there. And then lowered the car.
Dean says black diamond Mitsubishi electric to Chris.
Porsche steering wheel. There you can identify that steering wheel, stray bullet. Porsche steering wheel in the Volkswagen. Why would it have a red floor? Not a red car. Somebody did a lot of work on this little thing.
Lala says it's way cheaper to build an older car than it is to buy anything new that costs a fortune to fix to maintain.
Absolutely. And if they're not going to allow you to fix the new cars, what's the point of even buying them? You don't have the computers, you don't have the way to make a part work if you buy it at the junkyard. So What's the point of even buying one of the newer ones?
Firefly says maybe. I have never replaced any electric compressors on any cars yet.
None have failed? That's weird. It's got a side draft carburetor. Why? Why would they do that? Maybe because they don't have room because of that thing on the back?
Anime.
Here's another Chrysler for you, Chris. LeBaron, four door. Blah blah says that's because new car computers and modules are VIN locked. Exactly. So what's the point of buying one if you're a DIY guy? You want to stay away from all of that because once the car's 10 years old, there's no more support at the dealership. So how do you get anything done?
Joe Hutchins says the back shot of the windows of that Volkswagen looks like it has PSO rear glass.
It's possible they had to get it from somewhere because they're not going to create it for something like that. Want me to read that one?
Yeah, that's something that I enjoy.
Ford cobbled the automatic 2.3 with less boost, less turbo, no intercooler on most. A 5-speed could be anything from 145 to 205 horsepower. General way Ford did stuff back then, completely complicated. Well, their problem with the original in '79, the turbo engines, is they all had rod knocks. So it doesn't matter how much horsepower, the engine's not going to take it.
Double says it doesn't have Porsche engine though.
No, it doesn't, and we wouldn't expect it to either.
Chris says blah blah agreed, and I think more and more people are realizing that.
It's for delivering Porsche parts, not being a Porsche itself.
Barbara says there is a trend of installing all electric AC on classic cars. It requires all about 80 100
amps, 80 to 100 amps
to run, so that hacks install a second battery in the trunk so they can momentarily run it. A waste.
Momentarily, great.
Pablo Campos says being logged, I refuse to participate.
All of us do, except for Vilefly. He has to.
Chevrolet says the tuners will hack the computer. I don't see a problem.
No, they won't. No, they won't. Nobody's gonna bother with them.
Dean says Chrysler did the same thing with Turbo 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 variants, but they developed a 2.2 all the way. Chris says, I saw an article this week that a Canadian company is making new tractors that are 100% mechanical, no electrics, using a rebuilt 3-valve Cummins diesels.
Sounds like they're gonna sell a lot of them.
Glenn Nickerson is here.
Hello, Glenn.
They say, sorry, Specs can't stay. Just popping in to say hello to everyone and good night. Everyone stay safe.
We appreciate that, Glenn. We're right at the end anyway. So, other than this beautiful Cutlass Eurosport, you're not missing a whole lot. Even though this car is automatic, I would really like to have this car. Look how clean this one is. The bumpers, the doors, the interior, everything on it. It's just the perfect Eurosport.
Regular says, some good news from Canada. Canadian?
Canadian.
Cebola says, the green energy fraud has ruined all engines. Ella says, my daily driver is a 2000 Honda Accord EX Coupe 2.3 liter with 5-speed manual. Bought it on 2011, have rebuilt it twice for under 2500. Still drive it every day. 150 horsepower at 32 miles per gallon. Will never sell it.
There's no reason to sell it. I bought a new Honda Accord in '92, a two-door LX, and I traded that in the next year for a two-door SE because they only had the SEs on the odd years. And when the '94 came out, I didn't like the body style. '94 to '97, I didn't like that, but the '98 went back to what the '92 looked like, and it's a really nice looking car, which is the one that you have.
Dean says that's the thing. The 79 to 80 Ford Mustang Caprice Zephyr Futura Turbo, they added an upstream converter and auto gearbox for 1980 and made it a service disaster. OBS says, have you seen the VR version?
Of
Bafla says being logged is one thing, having to have online permission, subscription to pull codes is another.
well, that's crazy. Who's doing that?
Policarpano says not your father's Oldsmobile.
Definitely not.
Carlos,
Too sporty.
Carlos says also have the 1970 Dart 79 C28 Camaro and just got 2003 Dakota 5.9 with a 5-speed manual.
That sounds like a fun little truck. The same engine that I have, but with a 5-speed manual in my 2000 Durango. Got a lot of power.
Hey. No.
She's not talking to me, by the way.
Dean says, like you, how could they A, because Ford, Mobius Shipyard says, Eurosport VR celebrity.
Yes, I saw them in the brochure, but I worked at the Chevy dealer when those were new, 87, 88, and we never got one because it was a conversion company that made them. Our new car manager never ordered one. We probably would have sold it, being where we were with the movie studios down the street, but one never came on the lot, so I never got a chance to put my hands on it. But yeah, I saw them in the brochures. We sold a lot of celebrities out of that place. Just never got one of those.
Chevrolet says the black market will come up with a fix.
Maybe they will, maybe they won't.
Pablo says Chrysler is doing the log computer network access thing.
That's crazy.
Joe Hutchins says anyone.
I'll ask TK to talk to what's his name? Tom, Ted, Tim Kaniskis about it.
Joe Hutchins says anyone. What's the name of the small Canadian company making the simple serviceable semi truck with diesel generator for the electric drivetrain like a locomotive? Very promising.
I saw his video, but I don't remember the name.
Pablo says ever since they got in bed with Fiat.
Oh, they need to change that.
Joe Sherman says Chrysler just needs to go under already.
They're trying to keep their head above water. TK just did a video today about Chrysler security that's really pissed off because he published pictures of the new Rumblebee, and he told them back. He says, "Tell them not to park the truck where 30,000 people can just take pictures of it right outside the doors." That's what they did. They parked it right where people that were there were food trucks there. There were 30,000 people around that could take pictures and send it to him. Said if you're worried about this information getting out, don't park it outside where everybody can see it. And he says, Tim, I know you're watching this video, so don't park things outside.
Pablo says the Eurosports were always nice.
Yes, they were definitely a nice car. It looks better. I think it looks better on the Cutlass, on the Sierra, because the kit just goes with the body, the rounder body.
OBS says I saw only one ever.
I don't know how many they made, but who wanted to pay the premium of having a celebrity sent to the conversion company to put the grill on it, put the body kit on it, and do all that stuff? Not many. So we never got ones, which means nobody ever came in and said, "Hey, I want that," because nobody ever ordered one to come in. And I was there for 2 model years, 87 and 88, a little bit into the 89.
Princess Wildfly, don't forget the Gateway module in 2018 plus FCA products. Can't even do a deep code scan. Pablo says, yup, that's what I am referring to in a clumsy way.
That's crazy.
Chris says to Jeff Hutchins, Edison Electric. Lala says, Chrysler, GM, and Ford scraped all their EV stuff and going back to gas and HP.
They scrapped it. Got rid of it.
Jeff Hutchins says, drive with the Chris. Yep, that's it. Buffalo says, Edison Motors has the right idea.
Okay, so it's Edison Motors.
Policar says, all the celebrities roasted to death in Massachusetts, even if haven't seen one in years.
They're all over Mexico, buddy. They're all manuals here. The majority of them are manuals here. But still, with you can get air conditioning, power windows and everything, and a 4-speed manual. That Eurosport Cutlass also comes in a manual, but that's a 5-speed with a 3.1 under the hood. That's the one to have.
Joel says the kids nowadays can't even change a tire. They're probably not worried about not being able to fix their car.
Well, most of the new cars don't come with spare tires, do they? So who's going to teach them how to change a tire?
Joe Hutchins says the Bowfly, yes, Edison Motors. Triple says the Mecum auction prices seem to have really tanked.
That's a possibility. It all depends on who's there at the time.
Dean says we just have to learn the Latin Da Vinci codes to get into a post 2017 FCA product.
That's crazy.
OBS, especially when you could get an SS Monte, LS Monte. Balfa says, I refer to my Chevy Celebrity as a Silver Hornet. It had a buzzing exhaust leak I never fixed. Brenda Young says, is that a 2003 Volkswagen still air cooled?
Yes.
Mark says, yes.
Oh, we're yeah, okay. We're already to the same pictures again. Yeah, 2003 was the last year they built the air cooled Beetle, and which was June or July, mid year. They built them all and then ended production. The Ultimate Edition, which were either beige or baby blue, were still built in June or July, but they VINed them with a 2004 VIN, so they're calling them 2004 models. They're set apart from the 2003 models.
Mark says, yes, it is on Motors. I was looking it up. Chris says, Dean, or install the $10 gateway model defeat device and go on with your life. Marcula says, President Trump evacuated after shooting incident. I've just seen the headline.
Really? Where was he?
Balicarpana says, work for company put many fake convertible tops and cars. Uh, all people love them.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that on Mustangs, saw that all kinds of cars, and the Lincoln that my family had, Lincoln Town Car, 1988.
Dean says, if you're selling it, I'll buy it, Chris. Sorry. Bafla says, can bus hacking is still in its infancy? Jeff Hutchins says, I wish they'd have made a GM rear-wheel drive manual 3800 turbo sedan, kind of US BMW. Those 3.8 last forever. I just hate front drive.
Yeah, I don't like the transmissions on the front drives either. I had so many of them that were bad. Right around 80,000 miles. I don't know if it was a coincidence, but we bought like, I don't know, 10 cars at an auction one time, and 3 of them with 80,000 miles had bad transmissions. When I stopped buying 80,000 mile cars, I didn't have any more transmission problems. So that's right about, for me, 80,000 miles is about where a transmission goes bad, in my experience.
Pablo says, I'm trying to learn to use Wireshark. Pablo says, does anyone else rip outdoor buzzers immediately from 70s to 80s vehicles like I do?
Nope. The buzzer is part of its charm.
Pablo says, ripped out all of the key and door buzzers from the 70s. Dean says, can buzz rocks. Pablo says, only for the engineers. Dean says, oh, my hero flying. Chris says, Firefly Wireshark has been around since forever. So says, that would be a perfect car for Alnella swap.
Mercedes?
George says, an old Mercedes-Benz, the official car theme pot caters everyone.
I don't think they would drive this one. Not with the tiny little engine that's in it. It's a 190. The bigger Mercedes, yes.
Dean says, seatbelt interlock.
That was only 1 year in 1974. Just put your seatbelt on.
Papa says, Wireshark now the codes OBD2 and CAN. Papa says, ACK, the dreaded seatbelt interlock.
Okay, guys, it's after we're more than 2 hours, and you've already seen these pictures, so I think we're gonna get out of here. If you want to come back and see the same pictures, we'll be on tomorrow night at 8:15 after Jamie gets off, so we don't step on anybody's toes. So, good night, everybody.
Thank you guys for joining us. Thanks for being here.
It's dinner time.
We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Gotta move the chat.